Alrighty, hey guys, FunnyGuyTimmy here. Want to go ahead and do a behind the scenes, not really behind the scenes, video of the Leia Poppins question mark video, which was a lot of fun to do. I had been trying to find animators and people to do animation and you know, write little parodies and stuff like that. But I found a way to basically do really simple animation on my own using Sony VEGAS Pro 15. Now, you can probably do this in other Sony VEGAS versions, but the one that I'm using is the I think it is the most up to date Sony VEGAS. Basically, what I did is so I have one of those little touchpad style art tablets, drawing surfaces, but it's really, really hard to work with. I'm needing one of those display screen, art screen kind of things instead. But what I did for this is I actually used my iPhone and actually drew all these little pictures, little images. I drew them all together and then cut them into their segments and then colored them and then rendered them as an alpha, as a PNG with an invisible background, so I can just import and not have to like rotoscope around them or anything like that. And so then I would just draw all these together in a way that they all overlap each other. And so I also have all the little pieces of debris that go flying in the background. Did all those individually. Basically, had to hand animate those individually. I think this is the only one that's just one solid image. Was Leia flying. Now, the one thing that I hate is since I don't have one of those tablets, one of those actual drawing surfaces, drawing screens, is that I had to do all of this in here by mouse. So as you can tell, it's just terrible, and mouse is just really hard to draw with. But yeah, all the sketching and line work was done with the Apple iPad Pro and the Apple Pencil, which is my actual preferred drawing surface right now, which is really good. The only thing is that you have to actually save and export the images as PNGs, or you just get the white or colored background and then you gotta get rid of it later. So, yeah, and this was obviously, I had to cut every segment, draw it all together, but then move this one down and then move it slightly apart so I could rotoscope around these later, and I'll show you what I did in just a second. Then I colored them just to make sure that I have them all basically the right size, and then every single one of his mouth shapes. Okay, now this one right here, this is what I originally was going to go with. But I did all this speckling detail and all this kind of like very small. I don't know if you can I zoom in? I can't zoom in. Okay. I can't move that. There we go. There's all this like speckling detail. And I was going to do that for all of it, but it was just time consuming, and it was such a small image that it was essentially pointless. So then I just went with, can I switch? I can't switch. There we go. So then I did the rest of them all with this shade and this coloring. I had to redo, this one and this one after I had basically done them all because the eyes were different. So I had to go back and do all that. But yeah, then I just left nothing here for his mouth, so I could just add those in. See how that just seamlessly overlays. And so I drew all of these in the iPad. I drew them basically all as one image. Drew them as one solid image, and then exported each layer individually. And so they're all basically, every single one of these elements is sitting where they would sit in relation to all the other pieces. So I don't really got to scale them. I don't got to move them around. I drop it, and then they'll basically all sit in relation to each other in the right spot. So we're going to go back here. Okay, so Let's go to the first one. Now, there's 2 ways that you can animate with this, and it has to be incredibly simple, which is why I chose this scene, because there was very little that actually... There was no walking cycle. There wasn't, multiple characters talking to each other. It was, really, really simple. So we just have Princess Leia, or Admiral Leia? I think it was Admiral, or General Leia in the movie. So we have there, that's her face layer, and then her eyes layer that just overlaps that. And again, because they're basically all scaled and drawn over each other and in relationship to each other, that all I had to do is just import it and then just scale them up all together. And then behind her we have, where is it? We have space. Where's space? Where's space? Oh, I think that's space. Yeah. I just found a really nice image of space. And then basically just blurred it and moved it around for different scenes. So it looked like it was a different section of space, but when in actuality it's the same image, just being moved around. Okay. And then we have 3 or 4 images for... Oh, no. Yeah. 3 images here for the debris flying in the background. That's these guys. So I'm going to go to that one. It's kind of it's supposed to be like a piece of sheet metal, but this kind of looks like a rock or potato chip. And so I would, if I needed to rotate the image, I would do it in here. But when it came to actually moving the image, like actually taking this image and actually moving it across the screen, I'd go into here, and I'd do... Oh, I'd also rotate it in here, I guess. I guess that's also where I rotated it. But all the movement of each individual piece is done in here. So we got the debris. I think it's that one right there. So as it moves, it's just going behind her and just moving away. And then it would get to here, which is at the end of that animation, or that image. So it got to the end of that piece of debris. For God's sakes. And so now we have another piece of debris on the next coming up. So I had to go and then set that one up in its first step for animation or whatever, where it needed to go first. Oh, no, don't do that. So that's where that one starts. And then, just like the other one, this one moves over. So that one is... I don't think you can see it right now. It's kind of... Oh. Okay, that one's moving off screen. Where are you going? Huh, can't see that one. Must be a tiny piece of debris. But yeah, so all of these pieces of debris in the background are being animated one at a time, given a slight rotation, and then just moved from one side of the screen to the next. Just kind of look like trying to give it a little bit more background, a little bit more depth, trying to recreate the Leia Poppins scene with all, because all the debris was everywhere. So again, we got more debris, and then when it comes over here, so now the debris is over here. So that just flies off, and I think that's that one right there. Yeah, I think that's that piece. It's flying, it's rotating, and you got more pieces just flying around, and so every time it goes to another image or another piece of rubble, it goes into another animation. And since they're always like leaving screen or exiting or leaving the next time there's another image, it comes in, that one just basically comes back into frame from the same direction that the other one left, if that makes sense. So I got all these. Okay. So that's basically how I animate, which is, it's really, really simplistic. Yes, it does have keyframes, so that helps out a lot. If I had to do literally every single frame, this would be impossible, and I wouldn't even try. Okay, so, and then I also had a foreground layer of debris. So we got like multiple pieces that kind of like cover or go across the characters, and it's exactly the same thing. You know, it's basically the same thing. It's just once this one goes across, watch that piece. Once it goes across, there'll be another piece of debris that will come back onto camera, basically, or back on the scene. Yep, coming back in. So these ones are sharing the same timeline, and so basically after that one left, it reset. It basically moved it here and then moved it across there for this one. So every single one of them are like that. Okay, so when it comes to the Princess Leia hand, like in this scene right here, this one right here, her hand isn't moving. It's stationary, but it's still 3 pieces. We go in here, and all of these are individual pieces. Okay, so now I exported that image with all the elements. Together, it's just easier to just export one image that had all the elements. But what I do is I go in, and then I go into mask, check the little box to enable, and then I use the little draw tool, and I draw around that one. So now that layer, even though it has all this extra stuff in the background on that image, it's only that one that's going to show up. And then I go into position, and I reset. There's a little node right there for like its center mass or whatever, like where its tilting point is. And so I set that to where it should be rotating from, so that when I start rotating it, when I actually start moving this, it's actually going to rotate from that point. It's actually going to start moving from that point. Same thing with this one, which was the wrist. Came in, I just masked around it. I don't think I feathered it. Yeah, I didn't have to feather it because, I mean, they weren't overlapping. And then again, change the pivot point right at approximately the wrist, pretty close to the wrist. And so that all I had to do was just do this on each one of these, just tilt it, you know, as needed. Now the complicated part, now this is why this is hard, and if you're going to animate, for the love of God, get Adobe After Effects, Flash, or Toon Boom, or Anime Studio, because this was like the hardest way of doing this. It took me like a month and a half just to do all this. Most of it was probably the drawing. It took me less to import it into here. But what was I saying? Yeah, so not only did I have to rotate these, as this arm moves up, as this arm starts to move up, rotating from here, moving this one up, both of these pieces have to actually move up at the same time, have to basically move up with it as well as rotate, which the actual vertical and horizontal movement, I actually had to do that by hand to actually go in and match their movement by hand, which is what, you know, so not only am I rotating these, I'm actually moving them. Oh, wait, let's see. Okay, yeah. I'm rotating them here. I think that's what I'm doing. I'm rotating them here, but I'm actually moving them in here. Let's see. Zoom out. Nope, that's not what's going on at all. Oh, yeah. All the animation is done in this one right here. The event, pan, and crop. Yeah, all the animation was done in here. An event, pan, and crop. Now, if I wanted to actually move, you know, these pieces from one section to the next, like we have her arm, but then we come over here to where she's moving from one side of the screen to the next. Now that's over here. That's gonna be this. Yeah. So now I'm actually moving the image, the actual element, from right to left in there. Because if I tried moving it, actually moving the image from here to here, what would happen is it would just cut her off, because this is just showing what of the image is actually being seen. But that's actual movement. It's actual physical movement of the image. Well, not physical. This is all digital. All right, now the complicated part. Admiral Akbar. All of this is all Akbar. All Akbar. So we have him coming in. Now, again, all of these pieces are individual. That arm, these legs are together, that chest piece, that arm, his head, and his mouth. So it's not that many pieces. It's not that many elements. It's not that hard to edit or that hard to animate. But we have in here, I'm going to go to mask, and you can see I did the same thing as I did with Leia's arm. I just rotoscoped and then changed the pivot point right to approximately the shoulder so I can rotate it, and that'll actually rotate his arm. So what I actually did is like I gave him a little bit of like arm movement. So as he goes, his arm will kind of like tilt up. You see that kind of like a little bit of tilting up, a little kind of rotating, just to give it something. And then that's not the one. Oh wait, no, yeah, that is one. Nope. And his chest, where are you? Okay, his chest I really didn't do anything with because his chest stays stationary. But as you can see, it's a completely different image. Now, in order to get all these pieces to move from one side to the next, all together, to get them to all move together, basically what I did is I went in with one of the pieces. Now, remember, again, I drew all these to overlap and overlay without me having to change their size or do any tweaking. So basically, when I import them, they're all basically right where they're supposed to be. So what I did is I went into one of these images, the main one, which is the chest, and then I animated it going from one side of the screen to the next. So as we move along, he just moves from one side of the screen to the next. Why did you fast forward like that? That was crazy. So as we move the chest, it just slides. Again, it was space. Since it's supposed to be in space, this was really easy to animate because there's not really supposed to be like walking and up and down. There's no terrain. He's just gliding through space. So basically, after I did that, after I had animated that one piece, his chest, going from one side to the next, I then went in and copied what I had done. And then I went into the next one, the next body part, and I pasted that exact same movement. So now, being that they're all connected, they're all in relationship to each other, all I had to do is paste that into every single one of these timelines. Every single one of these timelines for Admiral Akbar. So every single body part, is going to move in the exact same direction, at the exact same speed, at the exact same time. So that was the easiest way of getting a character to move from one side of the screen to the next. I guess if I wanted, I could have done a very, very, very basic walk cycle. But what I decided is just to do just space. It's the easiest. And then if there was any rotating of the pieces, like his arm, or, you know, his legs have like a slight swing to them, and this arm kind of goes up and down, that's all done in pan and crop. And so any of the large movement, the large piece moving, is done in, what's it called? Track motion. So that's how I did that. Now, when it came to doing the lip, which by the way, his lip sync is that literally took the longest, and it was the hardest for me to do because and after all that trouble, it still looked like the worst. It was the worst thing in the entire clip, was just his mouth moves, because I really don't think it matched up all that well. But I tried to do it in the way that the puppet, the actual character in Star Wars, actually moved his mouth, which was just kind of more or less up and down with like slight articulation. For the most part, he was just a puppet. So I didn't put too many mouth shapes. So it was closed mouth, open mouth. Let's see if we can see them all. Kind of a wide open mouth, an O more or less, closed mouth, and I think that was it. I think it was just those three. I think those were the only three that I did. Yeah. I was going to do like on certain syllables, like O instead of like ah, actually change the size of that image and kind of like squash it in to make it look more like an O, but that would have taken way too much time. But to make it slightly easier, I actually had myself, I'm going to go over here so you can see me. I had myself, when I recorded the audio, I filmed myself looking into the camera so I could try to match the mouth a little bit. Again, wasn't perfect, but it gave me something to go off of because this program is not designed for that, and so it's not going to like if you're using Anime Studio, or any of the other programs. A lot of them have, especially the higher end ones, they're going to have like more or less an automatic mouth shape tool. This did not have that. And going by the wave format wouldn't really help me out all that much. So I actually filmed myself and then just had it right there as the character flies by and the head turns. Then I just start matching the mouth shapes as best as I could. It's not perfect and you know, not a fan of how it turned out. But it was a learning experience, I can tell you that. Just get rid of that, 'cause that's hard to look at. Okay, so, yeah, and then as far as, like, the background noise, there wasn't a lot that I did. I took the, what did I take? Okay, for the music, I took 2 tracks of the Jedi, the actual scene soundtrack, and I actually had to change it up a bit in order to be able to use that small snippet. I had to change certain elements of it so it was different, so it wasn't just exactly the same. I tried to find some people to actually redo the music for me, and my exact words were, I'm looking for someone to recreate this song with fewer instruments, just a simpler version of this song. But basically, I need it to be this long. I need to basically hit, swell at this point of the song, and I need this song just recreated. No one could do that. No one was able to do that, and I think people sent me like 3 different tracks, and they were 100% wrong. They just were not usable at all. So I just ended up having to just go with that. Even people that were like, I can do it for 100. I'm like, well, this doesn't sound anything like it. So your sample that you sent me doesn't sound anything like it, so I'm not using that. And then I also put in, now you're probably going to be wondering why there's 2 tracks, and I'll explain that in a second. So I went out and I found some like war sound effects of like explosions happening off in the background, because this scene there was like there was still the fighters and the ship was still being bombarded. So I just took those and I changed the pitch to make it really, really low. I slowed down the audio a little bit and I brought up its bass. So it's, even though, yes, technically there's no sound in space, this made it sound more like how it did in the movie, where it was just this kind of really low rumbling explosions and stuff like that. And then the reason I have it duplicated is to give it more of a stereo sound. I have one of the tracks all the way to the left and one of the tracks all the way to the right, to give it just more depth and to make the sound just bigger. And just, easier to hear, instead of just being mono on all of it, and then it just all blends too much together. Same thing with, I found, as just kind of, there was a, someone had recorded audio from space. Now it's weird. It's not really audio, but what it is it's like the background radiation of space, that someone had, basically converted into audio. And so I took that and again slowed it down, and changed its pitch and did all the same stuff to just give it this kind of ambiance, this kind of really low rumble, to give kind of a an environmental sound, sound effects, and then environmental sound, as well as the music. And again, did the same thing, duplicated and moved one of the channels all the way to the left, one of the channels all the way to the right. Now, there was another element. There was another piece. I did have this one character that was going to, like, when you have the dialogue here. Let's go and play this.
Hey, how can we hear you in space?
Now that there was actually supposed to be another guy just kind of like floating and rotating through space in front of him, and he was actually supposed to make eye contact. And it was just like another one of the people that was on the bridge when it got knocked out. You know, that was just supposed to be flying through space, and just kind of like part of the joke. But I didn't really feel it was necessary. I thought also I couldn't change where he was making eye contact, more or less. He's always going to be looking forward, and without having to create new eye assets and tweak those, I just thought maybe he's just talking to the audience, which the character was more or less supposed to represent. And then also for the last thing, I went in and I actually took Akbar's dialogue and had it pan from right of the screen to the left side of the screen as he moves. So as he, kind of just moves through space, the audio actually changes. So when he's over here, you're going to hear him more in the right, and when he's over here, you're going to hear him more in the left. It was just kind of give a little bit more depth and some more stereo to it. But yeah, it's basically how I animated this. Lots of layers. Again, it took me about a month and a half for just this. Was it like a minute long? It's like a minute long. A lot of my life just changed, and practically nobody has seen it. I hope some of you guys have seen it, but anyway, yeah, this is just kind of behind the scenes talking about how I did this, and it was fun, and I plan on doing more now that I've learned a whole bunch, and I'm hoping to get probably Anime Studio in the near future, and maybe an actual drawing service to actually work with to hopefully streamline some of the workflow. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below. If you have not checked out the other video already by now, go watch that. And until next time, peace.